Part 91. I rescued my lover back, so he should be careful and cherish it in future. Xuan Huaifeng listened to the hail of bullets behind him, and ran to the forest. When he reached the edge of the forest, a figure suddenly flashed out, opened his arms, and hugged him like a bird that had crashed into his arms. Xuan Huaifeng was bitten by a snake once. And he was afraid of grass ropes for 10 years. When he realized that he was being hugged, he immediately lifted his knees and slammed it between the other's legs. The other party's response was very quick, and he moved his thighs to block the knee strike. Although he didn't hit his life, he twitched his brows in pain. He smiled bitterly and said, "I knew I was going to be beaten by you." The voice passed into his ears. Xuan Huaifeng's whole body loosened, and he called out hoarsely, "Bai Xuelan." Then he fell softly. Bai Xuelan's joke that he was about to be beaten was also pretending to be humorous when he was impatient. When he saw Xuan Huaifeng's style softening, the humorous mask could no longer be maintained. He immediately put him on the ground, hugged his upper body, asked nervously, "What's wrong? Where did you get hurt?" When Xuan Huaifeng slammed into his arms just now, he didn't take a closer look, but when he looked at it, he saw that Xuan Huaifeng's right cheek was high swollen and 5 finger marks were clear. It can be seen that the shirt was torn to shreds, so Bai Xuelan was furious, but his voice became softer. And asked in a low voice, "Zan Lu Zhao beat you?" The other side was obviously still fighting, and gunshots continued. One of the guards ran over to report, "Chief, I have found Song Leader. He is still alive, but he just took 2 gunshots." Bai Xuelan said, "It's good to be alive, and send a car to take him to the hospital. The others continue to give me a search around Lindsay." "The surnamed Zan did it, I guess, right?" The latter sentence was asked by Xuan Huaifeng. Xuan Huaifeng said, "They are all dressed in casual clothes, and their faces are covered with black cloth. However, I did see a person named Zan." Bai Xuelan asked, "Is there anyone else I know?" "It's the arrogant third brother," but he hesitated for a moment and shook his head. Bai Xuelan snorted and said, "Don't hide it from me. I know that at least Xuan Huaiyin will be involved." Xuan Huaifeng was exposed by him, and he didn't speak. The feeling of comfort in Bai Xuelan's arms was a world away from the frightening moments before. He didn't want to argue with Bai Xuelan at all, he just wanted to stay closer. He moved his body slowly, but caused the pain in his body, and snorted softly. Bai Xuelan hurriedly asked, "Are you still injured? Where does it hurt?" Xuan Huaifeng gestured with his chin raised. Bai Xuelan hurriedly lifted his shirt, and when he looked at his abdomen, there were deep bruises and a large area of purple and blue. Bai Xuelan was angry and distressed, and scolded, "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" He beat him up, picked him up and walked back, saying, "I'll take you to the hospital." After leaving the forest, he saw the General Administration of Customs parked beside him. Several cars, one of which is Bai Xuelan's commonly used car. Several guards were escorting a few blood-stained, dejected men over and asked Bai Xuelan for instructions. "Chief, these injured people were trying to escape on the edge of the woods and were caught by us. What should we do?" Xuan Huaifeng thought to himself that these people should have been shot and wounded by their own escape. Bai Xuelan didn't scan the eyes of those people, without a trace of expression on his face, and said, "This kind of bandit, the government has always killed them directly." The arrested people were surprised and raised their heads and shouted, "We are not bandits, we are serious soldiers. We demand a fair trial from the government." Bai Xuelan sneered and said, "You want justice? Okay. I will give you justice." Xuan Huaifeng knew that he was very courageous and dared to do anything. He was arrogant and said, "Chief, I see this." Before he could finish speaking, Bai Xuelan had already bent over and put him on the back seat of the car, straightened up, and pulled out a gun. Bang 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 bang, towards the chest of the prisoner, one shot at a time. Xuan Huaifeng shuddered when he heard the deafening gunshots. Struggling to lean out of the back seat, it was too late. He stared blankly at the 6 corpses lying on the ground, speechless for a long time. The bright red blood gurgled out of the corpse, dyeing a piece of mud red. After a while, Xuan Huaifeng looked up at Bai Xuelan. Bai Xuelan, still with his calm face, slowly put away the gun, smiled at him, and said, "My marksmanship is no match for you now. Come on, let's go to the hospital." He lowered his head and squeezed into the car seat. Xuan Huaifeng was hugged by him, only felt a chill on the back of his neck, and whispered, "You are using lynching to kill people. You will be held accountable. The law of the Republic of China stipulates that the murderer pays for his life." Bai Xuelan pressed his neck to his neck. He took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "My Bai Xuelan's law. Whoever moves the propaganda pays for his life." When he arrived at the hospital, it was natural that he would go out of his way again. Since Xuan Huaifeng was hospitalized last time, the nurses have already recognized the authority of the chief of customs. This time, the adjutant Zhan was injured again. No need to remind them, and they were more cautious and active than usual, running back and forth to resettle. It is still the foreign doctor who came to see it in person. Xuan Huaifeng had already changed into a clean shirt, because the doctor had to remove the clothes to see the wound. The doctor looked at it and said, "It's a trauma. Did you fight someone?" Xuan Huaifeng wanted to say it wasn't a fight, but he couldn't explain what happened, so he nodded. Bai Xuelan said, "Doctor, you have to look carefully, and don't leave any internal injuries." The doctor moved his hand, pressed the position of the liver, asked questions such as whether it hurt or not, and then said, It doesn't matter." He asked again, "Where else?" Xuan Huaifeng said, "My ankle hurts too." When he was about to take off his boots, it took a lot of effort, and the ankle was already swollen. Bai Xuelan was impatient, and felt sorry for Xuan Huaifeng's pain. So he cut off his boots with a dagger, and cut off his socks. Seeing his sprained and swollen ankle, he looked at Xuan Huaifeng complainingly. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Xuan Huaifeng just smiled bitterly. Fortunately, it was a skin injury. The doctor gave him medicine, and he didn't need to be bandaged. After a few words, the doctor left. Bai Xuelan also asked to be hospitalized, and Xuan Huaifeng said repeatedly, "I don't want to be hospitalized for this minor injury. Going back to the mansion. The environment is 10 times better than here." Later, he said, "There are many patients in the hospital, and bacteria are also spread. Do you want me to stay in a place with many bacteria?" Bai Xuelan nodded and said, "Okay, as you said. It's okay not to be hospitalized. Only then will the two have a chance to meet face to face alone." After speaking and arguing, they all seemed to realize the special significance of this moment. Instead, the two are quiet, silent for a while. Humans are both easy to forget animals and the easiest to remember animals. In the hail of bullets just now, they forgot their previous quarrel without leaving a trace, and now they face each other in silence, but the unhappiness of the past seems to have been fermented, and not only has it returned, but it is also very clear. The Cold War started for Lin Qijun. Heartbreakingly heartbreaking words. Desire for reconciliation was rejected. Drinking and teasing in the small flower hall. Also, the nondescript, almost rogue drunkenness last night. Quietness is like invisible spider silk, entwining Bai Xuelan. Although his heart is like steel, he can kill 6 people in a row without blinking. But this moment of quietness is enough to make his steel-like heart heavy and uneasy. For a moment he even blushed a little, ashamed to realize that he had done a lot of bad things. Exhausted effort to seek a person's love. Since it was bestowed by heaven and obtained, he should be careful and cherish it as if he were eyeballs. Then why did he annoy Xuan Huaifeng for a useless Lin Qijun? To make Xuan Huaifeng feel wronged? In the eyes of Bai Xuelan, a Da Xin Yangxing company is nothing. Taking 10,000 opportunities to repair Da Xin Yangxing can't compare to Xuan Huaifeng's happiness for a moment. Bai Xuelan suddenly realized that he was not good at mathematics. How simple a problem he could not do. However, the person he loves is so sensitive, and the words he said that sullen people's ears. I am afraid that Xuan Huaifeng will never forget it for the rest of his life. Bai Xuelan was terrified, but felt a hand reach out. He raised his head and saw that Xuan Huaifeng was also looking up at him. But Xuan Huaifeng didn't say what he wanted to say. He shook his hand and asked with a smile, "Are you still mad at me?" His dark eyes were as crystal clear as a strong and beautiful deer, without a trace of impurities. Bai Xuelan's heart trembled and suddenly melted into the clear eyes. Something separates from his blood, it seems to be the lightest and softest part of the human soul. That part floats away with him, away from all the coldness and fishy smell of the troubled world. Not just happy, that is something far beyond happiness. What he had been looking for all these years was found in the words spoken with a smile. Bai Xuelan's fingers trembled slightly, and he leaned his face over. Xuan Huaifeng misunderstood what he meant, blushed, and put his lips up gently. This was a wonderful misunderstanding, and Bai Xuelan had no intention of explaining it, so he put his lips to his lips and kissed him gently and deeply. The sensitive friction between tongue and tongue caused waves of sweet ripples in the body. So, I realized, this man is his. Even if you quarrel with him and get angry with him, it is still his. Just like he was at the beginning, he was angry, hated, gritted his teeth, and even wept, but he still never gave up. At this moment, Bai Xuelan understood. He doesn't need to be jealous of anyone anymore. Before leaving the hospital, Xuan Huaifeng also specifically asked to see Song Ren, and said to Bai Xuelan, "Don't tell me that this is the responsibility of the guards. I only know that he saved my life. Without him, you may not be able to see me today." Bai Xuelan said, "It's not difficult to see him. But your feet are so swollen, how can you walk? If you really want to see him, I'll carry you." His face a little red, he stopped and said, "It's not like I can't walk. I beg you, save me some face. Just give me a hand in front of people." Bai Xuelan laughed and said, "Since it's a begging, then I agreed, and I will ask for a thank you." Sure enough, with Xuan Huaifeng, he went to see Song Ren in another surgical ward. Song Ren is worthy of being a veteran soldier, but the 2 bullets in it are not critical. When Xuan Huaifeng left, Song Ren's wound was already bandaged, but it was temporarily inconvenient to move. Xuan Huaifeng actually said a few words of thanks, but Song Ren was embarrassed and blushed and said, "It's a matter of your own accord." Bai Xuelan said, "What is a compliment? When you go back to the mansion, only wait for me to reward you with something good." He turned his head and said to Xuan Huaifeng, "People have seen it, so you should rest assured. I know he is a big man. And he is still alive and well in a few days. Come on, follow me. Go home." Xuan Huaifeng listened to his last sentence. His heart was very hot, and he got into the car with his help meekly. Along the way, the 2 of them held hands, watching the scenery outside the window fly backward, like faded photos passing in front of their eyes one by one. They both understood that the feelings between them were no longer the same as before. That is another realm. Xuan Huaifeng looked out the window and suddenly said in a low voice, "Look." Bai Xuelan leaned over and looked at the sky he pointed to. The sky is like a piece of clean velvet, with a light blue color, with a very beautiful yellow gold border. And clouds of various shapes float freely in the light blue. Bai Xuelan said, "This is the most beautiful evening I've ever seen." Xuan Huaifeng pointed up and said, "That cloud looks very much like you." Bai Xuelan said, "Clouds are impermanent, whoever is thinking of in his heart, who is it like?" Xuan Huaifeng smiled slightly, acquiescing. Back at the mansion, Bai Xuelan personally brought Xuan Huaifeng back to the room, and Adjutant Sun came to him. He went to the customs office early this morning to work on errands. But he was not able to attend the meeting. Later, he heard that something had happened to Xuan Huaifeng and said, "I was actually sweating from fright." Fortunately, the chief and the adjutant Xuan have returned safely. This is the celestial aspect of successor. Bai Xuelan smiled and said, "Go to his celestial aspect. If it weren't for the hand. There are so many guns in the house, and I have let others take care of them. My cousin always said that when I became the chief, I should not keep so many private guns in the mansion." Then, he asked, "How are things going in the woods?" Adjutant Sun swept Xuan Huaifeng out of the corner of his eyes. Bai Xuelan said, "Don't worry about him, he understands me." Adjutant Sun said, "Whether they resisted or surrendered, they were all killed." One piece of corpses was collected and sent to the police department, where the report was for kidnapping outside the city. "They are bandits." Bai Xuelan said, "Well, this is done according to my intentions. Those Guangdong troops, now the government wants to win over them and give them convenience everywhere. So that they are even worse than crabs. Playing such an unprofessional trick, I thought I would. I'm afraid. I'll leave no room for them. I'll slap them with the name of a bandit and kill them with blood." Also, what about the surnamed Xuan? Did he get killed? Adjutant Sun said, "That person is very cunning. And his subordinates risk death. Delay for him and let him escape." Bai Xuelan's face sank. Xuan Huaifeng sighed and said, "That's why I started to persuade you not to kill people. Having captured those people and taking them to the police station is a living proof. I will be another witness, at least to testify against the exposed kidnapping. The person was killed, but the matter cannot be revealed. You can only let him go in vain." Adjutant Sun said. "Adjutant Xuan, you are naive about this matter. The police department is now wearing a pair of pants with the Guangdong army, and the prisoners are sent over. I'm afraid it will be released immediately. Even if a case is really opened for investigation, it will still be in the mirror, and I am afraid that you will be surrounded as a witness. The current legal system is completely useless. Point two guns at us." Bai Xuelan rubbed his teeth lightly. "Those bastards only know how powerful they are when they see blood." Adjutant Sun said, "There is another prisoner." Bai Xuelan asked, "How come there is the prisoner? Didn't you say that you won't stay alive?" Adjutant Sun glanced at Xuan Huaifeng again and whispered, "This is Adjutant Xuan's younger brother." Xuan Huaifeng was surprised and asked, "You caught him?" "My third brother?" Adjutant Sun nodded and said, "He was the one who covered Xuan Luzhao to escape. As a result, Xuan Luzhao escaped, and we captured him alive." Bai Xuelan sneered, "Xuan is also worthy of a loyal minister? Well, I have fulfilled his loyalty. And I will end him now." Xuan Huaifeng hurriedly said, "Wait." He was anxious to get off the bed. Bai Xuelan stopped him and asked him to lie back on the bed, saying, "I know you've done the same thing again. A woman's kindness." Because Xuan Huaifeng was stopped by him, he grabbed his arm and said, "I am the kindness of a woman, but I know that you can be cruel. I just have to tell you that no matter what, he is my own younger brother. If I let him have an accident, it will not be easy to see Father in heaven in the future." Bai Xuelan said, "It's not from the same mother, so how can you be considered a younger brother?" Xuan Huaifeng asked in return. We share the same father. So half the blood relationship is not blood relationship? Bai Xuelan saw that he wanted to. Xuan Huaifeng, a sloppy idiot, was a little dissatisfied when he wanted to talk back to himself, and said coldly, "Then tell me, how did you end up being driven by someone with a gun in the wild forest, like an animal in distress? Maybe you have to help him quibble." Saying that he doesn't know about these things. Xuan Huaifeng really took Bai Xuelan very seriously in his heart. He calmed down, thought for a while, and said earnestly, "I'm sorry. I know what you mean, it's because of him that I suffer, so you won't let him go. I don't argue for him. Today's he played a disgraceful role, which I have to admit. But he fell into your hands. Do you want me as a brother, watching him lose his life? In your eyes, he may be useless, very terrifying. But I grew up with him. When I was a child, he also ran after me, caught crickets in the garden, and kept calling me second brother." As he said, he put Bai Xuelan's hands gradually tightened, as if trying to grasp something that could support him. He looked up at Bai Xuelan's eyes and whispered, "I know he doesn't learn well, but it's also sad." The soft black eyes watched, even if it was steel. It couldn't help but become soft around the fingers. He had had a quarrel with Xuan Huaifeng for a Lin Qijun, and he regretted it greatly. "Now that I have learned a lesson. Of course I don't want to fight for another Xuan Huaifeng, and have another fight with the newly reconciled Xuan Huaifeng. Besides, there is not only one road under the sun." Bai Xuelan sighed and said, "Okay, I can only listen to you. However, you can't tell me to release him like this." Xuan Huaifeng said, "I just want you not to kill him." Bai Xuelan, "Then I will interrogate him, let him confess the crime, and then send him to the police station. How about that?" Xuan Huaifeng said, "That's fine. He can be tried by the government. If it really is his crime, I have no choice but to ask him to make amends. However, aren't you afraid that he will bite you?" Bai Xuelan said, "I have a way of doing this." He turned to Adjutant Sun and said, "You first put that person in custody, and I'll interrogate him when I'm free." Adjutant Sun responded. And after reporting the matter, he knew that the two of them should not be hindered from spending time alone. Before leaving, he asked casually, "Is there anything else you need to order?" Bai Xuelan said, "You can go out and tell the kitchen, and bring dinner here." Adjutant Sun agreed and went. After a while, the kitchen really brought hot food over. This mansion's own meals don't need to be repeated, they must be excellent, and the cooks are very attentive in order to please the master. Not only arranging the heavy flavored meats that Bai Xuelan likes to eat, but also not forgetting the lightness of Xuan Huaifeng's side dishes. Bai Xuelan was afraid that Xuan Huaifeng's ankle would be injured, and it would be inconvenient to get out of bed, so he ordered the small round table to be moved to the side of the bed. The dishes were placed on the small round table. He personally carried a very delicate enamel porcelain bowl and chopsticks, asked Xuan Huaifeng which one he wanted to eat, and he gave Xuan Huaifeng which one to eat. Xuan Huaifeng said with a smile, "Is this the pomp of Lafayette's meal? I know that my feet are crooked, but I don't know. I thought my hand was broken." Bai Xuelan said, "You talk nonsense again. If it's bad luck, I'm going to kiss you." Xuan Huaifeng still smiled gently and said, "Why don't it be more convenient for me to sit closer? Give me the chopsticks and let me hold it by myself." Bai Xuelan said, "Romantic things are always inconvenient." Xuan Huaifeng couldn't help sighing. Bai Xuelan asked, "What are you sighing for? Do you think I'm a hooligan who doesn't deserve to talk about romance?" Xuan Huaifeng said, "Please don't always belittle yourself. My sigh is just that compared to you. I'm really not romantic enough. That's it. And you are really a romantic genius. I should learn the way from you." Bai Xuelan smiled charmingly and said, with what you said just now, you have already left the school. Saying that makes me elated. I can't wait to be smashed to pieces for you. Be good. Open your mouth. He put the piece of shiitake mushrooms in the chopsticks into Xuan Huaifeng's mouth. Dinner is a meal that starts with romance and ends with romance, and eats both sweet and savory. Whether it was Xuan Huaifeng or Bai Xuelan, they all harbored an indescribable joy in their hearts. After a happy dinner, it is a happy wash, a happy change of clothes, and a happy bedtime. Naturally, the culmination of that joy is undoubtedly the movement of love after going to bed. Because Bai Xuelan was often rejected in the past, he always made this request with a little bit of vigilance that he would fail. Who would have guessed that Xuan Huaifeng had changed his attitude resolutely, and he was 12% obedient. Seeing Bai Xuelan pressing up, Xuan Huaifeng's ears were only slightly red, and he silently let him unbutton. Bai Xuelan wanted to kiss, but he just let him kiss silently. Bai Xuelan put his palm on his chest. Xuan Huaifeng held his breath suddenly, his heart pounding non-stop. Bai Xuelan couldn't help laughing, bit his ear with him, and said, "Is there a deer hidden in your chest?" Xuan Huaifeng pursed his lips and smiled embarrassedly. There was a little peach petal like light red on his cheeks, and the color was instantly attractive. Bai Xuelan's own heart couldn't help it, and it started beating wildly, but he still asked, "Does your body still hurt?" Xuan Huaifeng said, "It hurts. But it doesn't get in the way." Bai Xuelan said, "If I answer like this, what should I do? The pain will definitely get in the way. If it doesn't hurt, I will come. If it hurts, I can't bear it." Xuan Huaifeng asked, "Why do you endure it?" Bai Xuelan looked at him again, looking at himself with pure deer-like eyes. He couldn't help lowering his head and kissing his eyelid twice, and said, "I just feel sorry for you." Xuan Huaifeng said, "It seems that I should accept your distress." "That's good. Then, let's say good night to each other." He turned halfway and pretended to be sleeping. Bai Xuelan hurriedly pulled him, and said unwillingly, "Is it possible to say good night to each other like this? Can't you?" Xuan Huaifeng hid his face in the pillow and snickered, and asked him, "How do you explain the previous words?" Bai Xuelan smiled cheekily, "You take the two scenes seriously. I'm going to starve myself tonight, so I won't be called Bai Xuelan." Xuan Huaifeng said, "I knew you were still a robber. To pretend to be a Democrat. Let me expose it." Bai Xuelan's handsome face smiled, revealing a hint of evil charm, deliberately made the tone of the villain in the movie, and whispered, "Since you exposed it, now I'll show my true form." He turned Xuan Huaifeng over and lay on his back, facing himself. Feeling the smooth thighs under the silk quilt, slowly leaned over the body, stopped for a while, and slowly went in. Xuan Huaifeng had a patient look on his face, which was extremely seductive. After a while, he remembered breathing, took a few short breaths, and said intermittently, "Don't push too hard, I'm afraid." Before he could say a word, Bai Xuelan seemed to have run wild twitch. Xuan Huaifeng couldn't help but let out a cry, falling into the upside-down and blurry stormy waves, hugging Bai Xuelan's neck like a driftwood for survival. And instantly a thin layer of sweat was provoked on his forehead, neck, chest, and back. If you don't try too hard, neither of them will care.